Merhaba arkadaşlar, hepiniz IEFT Talks webinarlarına hoş geldiniz. Bugün moda işletmeciliği sunumuyla Manchester Metropolitan University'den Patsy ve Isabella bizimle. Lütfen sorularınızı sağ alt köşede Questions bölümünden yönlendirmeyi unutmayın. Yes, Patsy, the stage is yours now.
Thank you. Hello everyone, it gives me great pleasure to be with you here this afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll make a start. So today I'm going to talk to you and give you a brief introduction to corporate social responsibility and sustainability in fashion, based on my research and teaching areas. I am a reader in fashion marketing at Manchester Fashion Institute, which is part of Manchester Metropolitan University. A little bit about me, first of all. I did my PhD on corporate social responsibility in garment supply chains around 15 years ago, with fieldwork conducted in Sri Lanka. And since then, I've published my research in various academic journal articles, book chapters. I've also written about fashion marketing and luxury supply chains, and also been involved in speaking to the press and media in recent times, because sustainability in fashion is such an important topic. So I've had the opportunity to appear on national television, as well as being quoted in the press and being invited to speak at various industry events, which is really exciting to see how all of us are now trying to improve the fashion industry and make it more sustainable. So I'm going to share some of my experience and expertise with you today, and hopefully give you some insight into the various issues and the challenges and some of the potential solutions that we're exploring now in both research and education. So I think we are all aware now about fashion's negative social and environmental impact. Although fashion is a very important part of our economy, employing over 75 million people around the world directly and many more indirectly, it is also a very important part of how we express ourselves, how we communicate our identity, and really how we find our identity in terms of the clothing that we choose to wear. But over recent years, we've become much more aware of the negative social impacts and the human suffering in global garment supply chains. The Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh in 2013, where over 1,000 people lost their lives as the factory building collapsed. We're also aware of much greater environmental pollution of waterways around the world from textile dyeing and processing. The plight of animals, which are used to make fabrics for fur, leather, exotic skins, and reptiles and snakes and so on. And also an increasing problem of textile waste. So as fashion cycles have speeded up, and today over twice as much clothing is produced as what was produced 20 years ago, there is a much greater throughput of fashion. People are buying many more clothes than ever before and disposing of them much more quickly. So we are left with a big problem of textile waste and what to do with all the disposed clothing that people don't wish to wear anymore. These images are taken from landfill site in sub-Saharan Africa, where some used clothing is exported. So there's lots of social and environmental issues in fashion supply chains. And we're now going to look at why some of those things happen. It's important to understand how our clothing is made and all the different processes of transformation that happen between raw material and finished product, and how those processes and the various companies and industries that are involved are spread all over the world. So global fashion supply chains are extremely long in terms of the geographical regions they cover and also extremely complex in terms of the number of different companies and different types of manufacturers that are involved. And in fact, fashion supply chains originate in different industries. For natural fibres such as cotton, wool and viscose, the supply chain starts in agriculture, where we grow the plants that we then harvest to make fibres and yarns and textiles out of. For synthetic materials such as polyester and nylon, the fashion supply chain starts in the petrochemical industry. And then the fibres are turned into yarn, which are then spun, woven or knitted into various textiles, whether that's jersey, woven textiles and so on, before being then shipped to garment manufacturers who would cut the pieces, sew them together, add any trims such as buttons, zips and embellishments, all of which have their own separate supply chains in terms of where the products come from. And then they would be shipped to warehouses or retail distribution centres before then being merchandised either in physical stores or on websites by brands and retailers. And then consumers take them, use them, and then we have the end of life. So the end of life is quite an interesting area now of research in terms of what do we do with all of these used garments that people don't want to wear anymore. How can we then transform them into new things, recycle, reuse and so on, which I'll come to later. So this was some work that I worked on with some co-authors last year, and that the paper was published, and we mapped out the global fashion supply chain and tried to measure some of the environmental impacts in terms of carbon footprint, energy consumption, the use of water, chemicals, and also the volume of waste that is generated at each stage of the process. All of this is really exacerbated by the influence of fast fashion, which has speeded up product life cycles and encouraged consumers to buy more clothing than ever before. So fast fashion is extremely competitively priced, low priced, cheaply manufactured and frequently updated trend-led styles, which are offered to consumers online and also in physical stores. So the original fast fashion retailers such as Zara and H&M have been overtaken now by what we might call online super fast fashion retailers, which are much quicker at producing trends for consumers and using all of the data from their website to kind of predict what consumers are going to buy and manufacturing things even quicker than ever before. And the environmental impacts are magnified by fast fashion because it's manufactured cheaply and it's not worn for very long at all before being disposed of. So the whole process becomes very wasteful for garments that people don't want to keep for very long. The idea of corporate social responsibility is not a new idea. It's something that businesses, industries have been doing for quite some time. If we look at our own history in the United Kingdom and the Industrial Revolution, which happened maybe 200 years ago, there are examples of philanthropic business owners who tried to do the right thing by their workers and look after their workers, try to provide good working conditions and some type of career opportunities. Fast forward to today, corporate social responsibility has become much more important and relevant as we become more aware of the negative impacts of globalization and global supply chains, in that often the rich get richer, but the poor get poorer. And the gains of global supply chain are not shared equally between everybody in the chain. So if we look at the fashion industry, some of the world's richest people are at the head of some of the most successful fashion businesses in the world. And yet many of the workers at the bottom of the supply chain remain very poor and have, relatively poor working conditions. So corporate social responsibility is the idea that businesses not only have a responsibility to make profits and, return on investment for shareholders, but they also have a responsibility and a moral duty, if you like, to contribute to economic development in the regions in which business is operating, and improve the quality of life of the workforce and their families, as well as of the local community and society at large. This was the definition come up with, over 20 years ago at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. But it explains the notion that businesses do have wider responsibilities that go beyond their duties to shareholders and their need to, make profits and return on investments and follow the law. Those are the basic responsibilities, but they also have other ethical responsibilities in which they should consider stakeholders or people, organisations and groups that are have an interest in the company or are affected by the company in some way, not only those who have a financial interest in the business. So, for example, employees or people that live and have their families around some of the businesses operating facilities, and how they might be affected by the business operations if the business is polluting the environment nearby. So corporate social responsibility is about going over and above what is required by law and what is about the self-interest of the firm. So it's an interesting concept because it really demands that companies should go beyond exploiting, society and the environment for their own profits, but they ought to give back to society and protect the environment. So if they're doing business in developing countries, they should ensure that the business helps society to improve their economic development and give some quality of life to the workforce, not only using the workforce as a cheap form of labour. So although it's a big ask of business to consider stakeholders and wider responsibilities than simply doing business and making profit, there are actually a lot of very tangible business benefits of doing CSR, which have been uncovered through the years, through looking at practice and through academic research. So there can be benefits for companies in terms of employee recruitment, motivating workers and retaining the labour force. Employees prefer to work for companies that are doing good, that are going to treat them well, and they will be therefore more motivated to work, more productive, and labour turnover will be lower than a company that treats its employees poorly. Very importantly, especially in the fashion market, which is an extremely competitive marketplace where brand value is everything, there is not much distinction between the products on the marketplace, but it's really about the branding that will generate, consumer loyalty and interest from consumers. So managing your reputation and maintaining a good reputation is really important to support that, and ensuring that the company is not, going to be embroiled in kind of sweatshop scandals or negative press and media. More importantly nowadays, corporate social responsibility and fulfilling those higher moral duties is important for investor relations and access to capital. So many of the big institutional investors will look at aspects of corporate social responsibility in relation to risk management, and companies can access better financial terms and further funding more easily if they can show to investors that they are running, a good company and taking account of corporate social responsibility, and therefore reducing the risk for the investor of making investment in the company. For some companies, it can be a way of generating competitive advantage and carving out a unique market positioning with a reputation for ethical trading or sustainable supply chain management, or doing good by the people and the planet. And it's a way to distinguish the company in a very competitive marketplace. And especially in terms of environmental aspects and, trying to use less resources, less water, less energy, and so on, it can lead to much greater operational efficiency. So the cost of doing the operations is lowered if the business can figure out ways of doing that more sustainably, with less chemicals, less energy, or even treat workers well, providing good working conditions, and therefore improving productivity of the workforce. Another associated idea that came out back in the 1990s was the idea of the triple bottom line. So the idea that companies should not be evaluated only on financial performance, but that we should look at a holistic assessment of the company's financial or economic, as well as its social and environmental performance. And therefore, companies should really focus on social and environmental concerns as much as they do on profits. So the three areas are very much interconnected and cannot really be separated. And this is what we can see now in the fashion industry. Many more companies are, communicating about how they are considering people and planet in their operations and in their strategy, not only just profitability, but all of them support each other. And then we come on to sustainability, which has become very much of a buzzword in recent times. The original meaning of the word is really about endurance and something being durable, long-lasting, and so on. But in terms of sustainability in the fashion industry and in other sectors, it's really about maximising the positive impacts and minimising the negative environmental and social impacts along the supply and value chain. So reducing pollution, using more sustainable materials, improving working conditions, implementing social justice in various, operating territories, and so on. So there's lots of different ways that companies can engage with sustainability. However, no company can be perfectly sustainable. So we see that companies are sustainable to a certain extent, but ultimately they are only just doing some things in a less unsustainable manner. And there's a lot of talk nowadays around greenwashing. So although companies are communicating more about their sustainability initiatives, sometimes consumers don't always believe that companies are doing the best that they can. And there are certainly tensions and trade-offs between environmental and social impacts. And we saw this very clearly during lockdown conditions around the world. So when COVID lockdown hit and many countries mandated that businesses had to close, shops and factories had to close, it gave a very welcome rest and recuperation for the environment. And we saw in many places a reduction in pollution over that time. However, it led to very significant negative impacts on many of the workers in those countries where garment production happens, because they had no work and therefore they had no money coming in to, support their families and so on. So we saw very clearly that it's very difficult to achieve environmental and social sustainability in tandem. And there are also tensions inherent between fashion and sustainability. Fashion is all about change, always offering something new, upgrading our wardrobe, changing our appearance, and fashion is not really about endurance and staying the same. So there's inherent tensions there. You know, how do we get consumers to keep hold of their clothing and wear things for longer, when nowadays lots of consumers enjoy changing their wardrobe very frequently and trying new things? So there's some very interesting challenges and dilemmas there. Ultimately, we need to move towards a circular fashion economy and become less wasteful in our processes and our consumption. And simply recycling those things which we dispose of is not the best solution, because that is still very wasteful, especially if clothing has not been worn for very long. So what we're looking at doing now is trying to extend product life cycles by not only just making and consuming things, but then giving things a second life, repairing, reusing, upcycling, remanufacturing and reselling, so that the production of a single garment is not only just for one person to wear, but it could go to multiple different owners. So people could rent garments, they could have things repaired so they could keep wearing it for longer. You could upcycle things and give them, you know, better, more creative appearances and sell into a different marketplace. So a lot of the focus now is about how can we build business models which are not about linear take, make, consume and waste, but about extending those circles of reuse, sharing and repair for fashion. And some of the ideas really and bigger picture things that we need to think about is how all of the different parts of the fashion industry can work together to achieve some of these and overcome some of these challenges. So we need to think about design as well. How can we design clothing for more emotional and physical durability? How can we encourage consumers to become more attached to their clothing, to value their clothing, and they want to keep wearing it and keep it in their wardrobe? How can we design things that last longer so that they keep looking good and consumers don't need to dispose of it because it's worn out? We need systems level change. So a lot of the, you know, the kind of business models is based on unlimited growth. So selling more items, expanding businesses internationally, growing the business. And yet, if we want to reduce our environmental impact, we need to slow down the fashion industry and rebuild with a smaller, more sustainable industry. But how would that affect all of the workers that the fashion industry currently supports? How can we reimagine revenue streams that aren't based on frequent purchases of new garments? So how can we reimagine business models based on sharing, repairing, reusing, reselling, and so on? And how can we change consumer mindsets that new things are better than old things? How can we celebrate that longevity of keeping garments for longer? And really move away from linear business models towards circularity. And some examples on the right-hand side, there's a campaign to make second-hand clothing more appealing in the mind of the consumer. There are companies that use bio waste to spin fibres for fashion, or ocean plastic waste. We can now dye things without water, so we can use supercritical carbon dioxide rather than water for dyeing fabrics. There are various rental and reselling platforms available nowadays. Some companies are offering repair services. Other companies are innovating with digital fashion. So where the fashion item is only used to exist online, for example, to take a selfie for social media, there is arguably no need for a physical garment. But digital or virtual fashion can also be worn in digital environments, the metaverse, and so on, not only in the physical landscape. And finally, other companies, designer companies, are offering more investment pieces, so less trend-led, more classic, and items that people can keep in their wardrobe for much longer. And finally, we also need to remember that sustainability is not just about environmental impact, which has really, taken the focus is much more on environmental impact because of the climate crisis and COP26 and so on. But we still have to remember that sustainability is also about people and social justice for all of those workers that are involved in the outer reaches of the supply chain. So those are some ideas that we've been thinking about recently in the industry, in education, and in research. I'm happy to take any questions now before we move on, and I will tell you a little bit about Manchester Metropolitan University, the Fashion Institutes, and the courses that we offer. And you can scan the QR code here for more information and sign up to our newsletter if you'd be interested.
Hi, Patsy. So I've just had a look at some of the questions. I think some of them you will probably be able to cover in the next session. So we have Merva asking about applied skills that students can get while studying fashion and studying with us. And then we have questions about career opportunities for international students and the different types of fashion design we offer. So hopefully the next section will
fantastic.
Some of those.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm hopefully going to cover all of that for you now. So welcome to Manchester Fashion Institute. We are, oh gosh, part of Manchester Metropolitan University, which is one of the largest universities in the UK. We are quite a young, modern university, but we do have roots dating back almost 200 years. We have around 35,000 students, 5 faculties and 13 different research areas covering from bioscience to art. So it's a really fertile environment in which to study in. We're based in a great global city, Manchester, and we work very closely and have lots of connections with Manchester, the community, and both locally, nationally and internationally. So our aim is to really make an impact and use education to improve the lives of everybody that we come into contact with. So here's some images of our campus. We're based in the city centre. It is a lovely campus. We've got a mix of old architectural buildings and new buildings, a couple of which have only just opened this September, our new Arts and Humanities building and our School of Digital Arts. And these are some of the spaces in which you would be studying in. So we've got a lovely campus with lots of green spaces, and you can just walk into the city centre with everything that is there to offer. Manchester is a very vibrant, multicultural city, but it's also small enough that you can walk around. It's a very student-focused city because we have 3 big universities here. So students are very much part of, the fabric of the community in Manchester, and especially international students. So we've got lots of, restaurants, activities that are geared around international students. It's very cosmopolitan anyway. We have a Chinatown, for example, but we probably have every type of international cuisine that you could imagine. We have fantastic world-class sports facilities, museums, galleries, art, a thriving music scene. Manchester has a long both a textiles heritage, but also a music heritage. And there's lots of different shopping experiences, whether you like, luxury fashion whether you like sort of independent boutiques. And we also have Media City, where we have a lot of TV, video and so on companies there. And actually Manchester is now the digital technology hub for Europe. So there's lots of exciting, you know, companies and also both startups as well as global companies that have offices in and around Manchester. We have fantastic transport networks. We've got a tram, we've got an airport nearby. You can get a train into London in just over 2 hours. You can go out to the countryside within an hour, and you can also travel to other cities such as Liverpool, Leeds, so on, within an hour. So it's a really great location. Manchester Fashion Institute is one of the largest fashion schools in the UK, and we cover both fashion design, fashion communication, and fashion business. So it gives for a very vibrant area, both with all of those different disciplines mixing in together. And there you can see the list of our courses, which I'm going to go through briefly in the next few minutes. So we have a community of fashion professionals and innovators in fashion education, with around 85 staff and around 2,000 students. So we are quite big, but we're not so big that it's you know, impersonal. We have very close connections between staff, between students, and so on. So it's a wonderful place to study. Many of our staff have industry experience, both working internationally for global businesses, for you know, their own brand, for example. And we have many other staff who are, you know, wonderful researchers in their topic, and often their expertise will be called upon by the press and the media, and so on. So there is that real richness of expertise and experience between the staff. We have fantastic facilities, lots of investment because of the size of the school. We do make a lot of investment to upgrade facilities, and we have industry standard facilities across all of the different courses, whether you're using kind of digital software or whether you're using making machinery in the studios and the workshops. So everything that you could possibly need for fashion design, construction, pattern cutting, making, you will be able to find, and lots of innovative equipment as well. So we have things like 3D body scanners, magic mirrors, industry standard software, Gerber, Clo 3D, Adobe Suite, and so on. And these facilities are open for you at the weekends, in the evenings. And we have a fantastic community of expert technicians which are on hand to kind of help you with anything that you might need. We also have, you know, access to databases, one of the biggest fashion libraries in the country, and a specialist fashion librarian. So all of the kind of research and resources, market research, academic research that you could need to fulfill your projects, you'll have access to that as well. In terms of connections, many of our students undertake placements, internships. As you probably know, experience is super important for going on to work in the fashion industry. And we have connections with over 400 companies at probably every level in the marketplace, both in the UK and internationally, from luxury to mass market to sportswear, to designer, to fast fashion, and everything in between. So it gives you great opportunities to you know, start your career and learn from opportunities for guest lectures, for field trips, head office visits, and so on. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs now. So this is fashion design and technology. We do lots of exciting things like international collaborative projects with other universities around the world. So you can work with your peers. For example, this project was with RMIT in Australia and a protective wear company in Australia, where the students work together to develop a collection for a more functional collection of clothing. So this was a virtual collaboration because we weren't allowed to travel, but you can see that it's very much an applied project where you're given a live brief by the company, and then you work with your peers in Australia, in this case, to come up with a collection that's going to fulfill the needs of the user for this high performance clothing. Another project we did on the BA fashion program was an international collaborative project with 2 companies. So Hydra Armani in Sri Lanka is one of the Sri Lanka's biggest garments manufacturers, which specializes in denim and sustainable denim. And the students also worked with the head of denim at Stella McCartney, and they were tasked with coming up with reimagining the future of denim for a more sustainable future. So these outputs were things that the students made in terms of sourcing their own fabrics, doing different types of surface design and interpretations. So a really varied type of project, and a wonderful opportunity for them to work with industry partners on this and then present their outcomes to the representatives of the companies at the end of the project. We have a really great international profile, and we take part in the Graduate Fashion Week in London every year, which is the largest platform in the world for showcasing graduate fashion collections. Every year we have award winners, and we're so proud of our students and our graduates who win these awards and then go on to great things. So you can see some of the award winners from recent years. Just this year, class of 2021, Jasmine Bourne won the Collection of the Year award at Graduate Fashion Week for her collection of British and Fijian inspired collection. And you can see some of the other award winners there, both on the fashion art direction and fashion promotion courses. So we've had award winners in various different areas, as well as through, you know, the considered fashion and also fashion innovation awards. So some more images here of Jasmine Bourne's British and Fijian Heritage collection. Janie Cribbin won first prize at the International Youth Design Competition in Beijing, China, just recently, again, class of 2021. And her collection was inspired by Japanese car culture. And again, a fantastic, prestigious global competition. And then last year, Sophie Parnaby won 2 awards at Graduate Fashion Week for her innovative collection of sustainable alternative to sequins, which were 3D printed with zero waste production methods. So again, really creative and really innovative, and these awards give the students a springboard for their future careers. Not only do we offer fashion design, but, you know, the fashion industry has many more job opportunities than just being a fashion designer. So if that's not, you know, your particular interest, there are plenty more opportunities. So we also have 2 programs on fashion communication. So here the programs are very creative, but not in a kind of hands-on technical sense. So you won't be making anything, but it will be about kind of digital imagery, storytelling, and sort of campaign creativity. So some of the outputs that you can see there is around mobile apps, kind of photo shoots and editorials, and styling, and so on, and some of the really creative and thought-provoking outputs that the students have come up with in the last couple of years. So this is more about imagery to for your creativity. And then the fashion business and marketing and buying and merchandising. So we have 3 programs around the business aspects of management of fashion. But again, there is some creativity involved in here. So it's not just all report writing and, you know, kind of sales projections, but you'll be doing more creative types of reports and expressing your ideas visually using various types of software, and also proposing ranges, proposing campaigns, and really being quite creative in the way that you present your business reports, strategic analysis, buying proposals, and your merchandising plans. So again, if you're more interested in the kind of business aspects of fashion, but you still have some preference for creativity, you'll be able to develop both of those areas here too. Some examples of student work there. In terms of careers, there's lots of opportunities in fashion, and our students take up internships, placements, and go on to graduate careers across the entire spectrum of fashion, from designer brands to mass market, to kind of more sort of whether they're head office roles, whether they're kind of creative studio roles, and also increasingly lots more sort of digital roles around digital marketing, social media marketing and management, and retail store experience management, and around kind of websites and e-commerce, which is really strong in fashion too. So hopefully that's given you an overview of studying and life at Manchester Fashion Institute. I'm very happy to take any questions now from any of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patsy. I'm just going through the questions here. We had a question on the applied skills that students can get while studying. So just I guess depending on the course that they will be looking at, but the general applied skills that we'll be looking.
I'll stop sharing now. Shall I stop sharing?
Oh yes, yeah, thank you.
So yeah, the applied skills, fashion is a very applied subject. So the skills that you would develop would depend on which course you go to. For example, if you go for fashion design, you will gain skills in illustration, in conceptual development, in contextual practice and analysis. So how are you going to, what's going to inform your ideas for your collection, as well as in 2D and 3D pattern cutting and making. So all of those skills are developed from, the kind of initial inspiration, research and analysis, to, drawing your collection using manual and digital methods and software, to then actually going forward and making a pattern, producing the garment, manufacturing it, and coming out with a 3D output. So by the end, you will have a working knowledge of industry standard software such as Gerber and Clo3D, as well as the confidence to realize your ideas both in kind of flat and also 3D format. For the fashion communication programs, so there's no sort of hands-on technical making, but it would all be kind of digital. So again, it'd be very much about contextual research and analysis, and then learning the various industry softwares for creating campaign outputs, manipulating digital images, so Photoshop, Illustrator, and so on. And you'll graduate from those with a good working knowledge, so you'll be able to go, whether that's going into kind of a photo studio for e-commerce, whether that's creating kind of magazine spreads or social media campaigns, but you'll have confidence and ability for that sort of creative digital realm. And then for the business programs, again, you would graduate with some skills around creative presentation of information, whether that's PowerPoint or report format that are kind of visually impactful, as well as understanding the strategy, the business underpinning, the various calculations if you're doing buying and merchandising and so on, So you'll be able to start in that job and you'll have a working knowledge of which kind of software applications and the areas of the business that you need to perform in.
Lovely.
So we have lots of opportunities for placements as well. So many of our students would do an industry placement. So again, they would learn a lot of that as well in their third year and then come back for final year. So they can kind of put some of their learning into practice. And many of them have found that incredibly useful. Many of them have been invited to stay working part-time for their company when they come back for final year at university. And then often they're offered a graduate job in that company. So it's a great way to kind of try out a career path, or even if you don't like it, at least you've tried it and you know that that's not for you, so that when you graduate, you have more of an idea about which area of the business that you want to go into. And our students would do placements both in the UK as well as internationally, or they might do study abroad. So there's opportunities to do an exchange, study at another university for a year and kind of add to your international experience. Everything we do is really around employability. So we have a fantastic careers service, lots of opportunities for kind of working on your CV, for doing mock assessment centres, for kind of developing your portfolio, so that when you do graduate or you want to apply for a placement, that you're very much prepared and you're able to then perform and get that job that you want to get.
Perfect. You've just actually covered a question that Faiza asked about career opportunities for international students after graduation. I did mention here in my answer the graduate visa route, which of course now is opening more doors for international students to actually take on roles in the UK. But as we've kind of mentioned, there is a lot of that support from the start all the way to finish. And we also had a question on placements and some of the examples of placements of the companies, partner companies, which I think you've mentioned a couple of them.
So we have some exclusive placements which companies only offer to our students, and with many companies we've been working with them for year after year, and they've taken students on placement as well as graduates from us every year. So they know the capabilities of our students and they value them a lot. But there's a lot of support with that, and there's all sorts of opportunities, whether you want to go and work for a small designer atelier, whether you want to work for an online fast fashion retailer, whether you want to work for kind of a manufacturer or a luxury brand, any possible company you can think of. And also there's also opportunities outside of fashion. So for example, one of my graduates from this year, she's gone to work for an NFT art company doing their social media marketing, which is really exciting. So I think in the future we'll see more kind of jobs in the digital fashion metaverse area. And I've got a couple of I don't know any Turkish students personally, but I've got a couple of Indian students from last year. They've got jobs as merchandisers in the UK now. So yeah. So it's entirely possible if you want to start your career in the UK, that you're able to do that and to support that. And sometimes companies would particularly value an international student because the fact that they have that language fluency in more than one language. So I've had in the past, one of my Chinese graduates was headhunted by a big e-commerce company here to kind of head up their Asian influencer marketing department, which of course, a British student would not really be able to do that because they wouldn't have such in-depth knowledge of the Chinese influencer market. So in some cases, you're actually at an advantage being an international student, depending what the job is. If they wanted you to kind of work with, a buyer working with a Turkish supply chain, then you'd be perfectly placed, wouldn't you?
Exactly. I think we definitely here at the university value that international kind of culture, and we do definitely want to see that diversity as well throughout the campus. So I've just had a couple of questions as well on entry requirements. So I'm just going to quickly share 2 slides. One is on entry requirements and one is on fees and scholarships, just because we've had a couple of questions. I think will make it probably easier if I share my screen and get some visuals up for you. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me just go back and share. Okay. Hopefully all good now. So here's just a overview of the fees. So a bachelor degree is usually a 3-year degree in the UK, and that's between 16,500 to 18,000 pounds per year. A postgraduate program, so a master program, that's usually a 1-year program, and that's depending on the course that you choose, between 16,500 to 18,500 pounds. If you're thinking about PhD, then the fees can vary. There's a couple of different bands depending on which area of research you go into, but these are the general fees for this kind of academic year. In terms of entry requirements, for undergraduate programs, if you are currently at a high school looking to study a bachelor degree in fashion with us, depending on which school you're currently at, we can either offer you first year entry, so a direct entry to a bachelor degree, or a foundation program. So it just depends if your school is on one of the approved lists. So if you're not sure if your school is approved, just email me. I've pasted my email there, and I'll confirm. Generally, it's 3.5 out of 5, or 65% from your lise. If you're already studying a degree, you might be in your first year in Turkey and you're thinking, actually, I want to go to the UK, I want to start from the beginning, you're very welcome to apply as well. If you finish your first year at a Turkish university, that will also be suitable. If you're looking to study another area of creative arts and you're looking at architecture, here the requirements are different. But for all the programs that we've talked about in terms of fashion, fashion design, and fashion kind of business communication marketing, GPA of 3.5 or 65% would be fine to be considered. Now, for a master degree, again, depending on which university you've graduated from, we can either accept a 2.8 or 2.6 if our course has a higher requirement. If the course has a slightly lower requirement, then it will be 2.3 or 2.5. So for example, if you graduated from Koç University, we will accept the 2.3 for two UK class honours equivalent. And just for those who are kind of not familiar with the grading system, 2.1 and 2.2 are basically grades of a bachelor degree. So in the same way you would be graduating with a GPA out of 4, students here in the UK graduate with first, second or third class honours. But any questions, again, email me if you're unsure. In terms of IELTS, it's 6.0 for undergraduate and 6.5 for postgraduate. We do have a language center, so if you're at the moment still working on your IELTS and you would like a little bit more help with developing your English here already in the UK, we can help you with that, and then you can progress on to your main degree. And just the scholarships as well. So for our undergraduate programs in fashion, we offer £2,000 for every year of study. So that will be a £6,000 scholarship altogether throughout the 3 years of your bachelor degree. And for master programs, it's £3,000. So that's a 1-year program. There isn't any additional application for these scholarships. As long as you apply to the university and you're accepted, you will also be eligible for the scholarship, so no additional application, so it's quite easy here. And just wanted to mention that we do have a number of Turkish students already with us, so we've got around 3,000 international students and 20 from Turkey. And if you want to connect to one of our Turkish students, we do have a Turkish ambassador. His name is Yusuf. So I will share Yusuf's LinkedIn just now on the chat. So yeah, this is a little overview from me just on some of the practical information on fees and scholarships. Let me just check. We don't have any further questions. We can give it a minute or two and see if anyone has got any more. But meanwhile, I will look for that link, so if you can connect with our Turkish. Okay, I've just pasted the link to Yusuf's profile on our website, and you'll be able to go to Yusuf's LinkedIn there and connect. Patsy, is there anything else you would like to add before we end today's session?
I think we've covered everything. Yeah, nothing else really.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming along and presenting on fashion today. It's really good to have yet another topic covered. We've done kind of everything from science, engineering to fashion. So it's really great to see kind of the diversity at Manchester Met as well in terms of subjects. So thank you very much for being here and representing Fashion Institute, and thank you to Zeynep for organizing and helping out as well.
My pleasure, and thank you all for joining. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the great presentation, Patsy and Isabella. It was really informative for the attendees, and you covered all of the questions. Thank you for your answers too. Also, I would like to thank the participants in Turkish as well. Katıldığınız için teşekkür ederiz arkadaşlar. Manchester Metropolitan University ile ilgili diğer sorularınız için chat kısmında paylaşılmış olan mail adresinden Isabella'ya ulaşabilirsiniz. Umarım sizin için de faydalı bir webinar olmuştur. Yarınki webinarlarımızda görüşmek üzere. Thank you very much again, you guys. It was a pleasure to have you in IEFT Talks.
Thank you. Hope to see you in Manchester.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.